Hi everyone, how are you? It's Emmanuel live again. Now today actually got a bunch of topics. It was only last week, so I asked you guys to give me a whole range of topics that you thought were valuable that I could discuss. So I'll be getting through each and every one of those over the next fortnight, and thank you for everyone for sharing those. I also, and you're going to see me looking here as well, so I can see your notes just in case you guys are messaging, because I've got my phone the other way around today. So I've put together a topic that I think stretches across a whole range of things that have been asked and are regularly asked and that I regularly work with. So this can help you increase your self-confidence and your self-worth. Today's topic, as you can see, it's the QE, which is Quantum Equilibrium, my company, Quantum Equilibrium Communication Model. So if you're looking to effectively communicate better to others, if you're looking to expand your self-worth and grow, if you're looking, whether it's in business, physically, financially, mentally, anybody that you're communicating with, if you're looking to expand the level of communication so that you're not minimizing yourself or exaggerating others, in other words, infatuating or putting them on pedestals, or putting yourself on a pedestal and not effectively communicating, if you want to be a greater leader and actually be able to communicate in a way where greater groups of people are able to listen to you, then this is what you're going to want to watch, because today's Facebook Live goes into the dynamics of what occurs physiologically and psychologically when you bring yourself into balance in relationship to others as compared to when you don't. So feel free to ask questions. I'll be seeing you guys on here, so let me have a look to make sure. Beautiful. I can see we've got a few followers. Hello, Edwina. I can see that you're in from America, so you're all the way from the other side of the globe. Ask questions. I've got you guys on here, so I'm going to do quite a comprehensive talk compared to what I usually do, but I'm looking forward to introducing this topic. So I'm going to start off by talking about your values. Every human being on planet Earth has a unique and different set of values. Your values are what's most important and meaningful to you. So if you look up here, I've got this is your most important and your highest priority. The ancient Greeks called this telos or teleology. And in reference to the end of your mind, this is your chief aim. Every human being on planet Earth has an aim, things that they do where 5 hours will feel like 5 minutes. And there are other things that we do where 5 hours will feel like 5 minutes. So that's our highest values, the complementary opposites, where 5 minutes will feel like 5 hours. So I know that when I worked in retail when I was a teenager, I loved the getting to know people and the selling aspect of it. And that time would fly when I was working. But if you asked me to clean the store or anything along those lines, 5 minutes of doing that felt like 5 hours. Time and space didn't change, but my perception of time and space completely dissipated and dissolved. This is known as teleology, the study of meaning and purpose. We're looking to acquire meaning and purpose in our lives, and whatever's most valuable, our mind and our body sees meaning and purpose in that. That's why if you're in a relationship and you have a complementary opposite set of values to your partner, you'll realize that certain things that are valuable to you, they don't see value in, and vice versa. And both of your bodies are neurologically programmed, neurology being your messenger signals, to send signals in what's most important, meaningful, and valuable to you. You're also organized, disciplined, reliable, and focused. So you'll see here that you're disciplined and you're a master of your destiny, you're focused, you're ordered, and you're organized in what's truly most valuable to you. That's why if I have a child that loves playing video games, like I did when I was during 0 to 10, you'll find that nobody had to tell me to play the video games. Now that I love working on my company and discovering human evolution, nobody has to tell me to work with clients 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. because it's an area that I loved. In your lowest values, because we have a highest values, our lowest values represented by LV, and this is known as a value structure or a hierarchy of values. In this hierarchy, if we do what's most unimportant, unmeaningful to us, we notice that we become unorganized, we procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, and we become disorganized. When we set goals in accordance to what's not highest in our values, we quite often experience physiological shifts to let us know when we're off. Now, whenever we try and do things in our lowest values that we dislike and don't appreciate, we need motivation. And the key aspect of this is the word motive. Motive is required for us to get off our asses and do anything if we're doing anything that's lowest in our values. If we're doing something highest in our values, we're inspired. I'm going to take the first two letters of that in. It comes from inside of you and you're inspired from within to go and do what you want to do on the outside world. I would much rather live a world of inspiration when I'm following the voice and the vision on the inside and sharing that with the external world than having things on the outside needing to give me motivation to feel any sense of meaning and purpose. On a weekly basis, I work with clients, and there's two aspects I want to understand in terms of their physiology and their psychology, where they are in the mind and what they're feeling in the body. Are they living an inspired and focused life where they get up every day and they feel that they can't wait and have huge amounts of energy and vitality? Are they masters of their destiny because they're looking at support and challenge and they're equal? When you do what you love, if I take a basketball player that loves playing at the greatest level, they love training usually. They will push their body. And although they see a challenge in those extreme exercises, they see the end goal. So they have a support and challenge, pleasure and pain, and they see those equally. If I look at some of my friends in the gym and what they're doing to their bodies, I go, wow, because I used to have a very high value for gym. It's dropped a little bit, but now I'm still looking to manage my body. I go, that's a lot of pain. I don't know if I could be bothered doing that. But that's because in the area that's highest in their values, it's lowest in my values. And every human being has a unique and different set of values. Therefore, we have a unique and different set of programs and neurological programs in the way that our body functions and works. And we've got here Brandon. I love your work, bro. Well, I hope you're enjoying this whole new setup here, because I think it's going to allow me to give you more value. And great to see you on board, Brandon. So our identity is derived by our highest value. Whatever we perceive to be most valuable and meaningful to us, we identify with that. So if a mother and a father, or a male and a female, are walking through a shopping center, not even a meter away from each other, and the male, his highest values is business, and you ask him, what are you? He'll say a businessman, because he wants to be identified with what's most valuable and what's most meaningful, and he wants his identity to be surrounded by that. If I ask a female and her highest values happens to be children, and I've seen this in complementary opposites in different households, but if her highest values is children, then she's going to call herself a mother, because that's what's most valuable and meaningful and what she wants to be identified with, because she wants to be identified with what's valuable to her. So with every human being on planet Earth, we're looking to acquire mastery in the areas that are highest in our values. Now we can call this the angelic self, because it's the part of you that takes pleasure and pain and has an equilibrated mind and will set realistic expectations, because we'll take the pleasure and the pain of those expectations. Whereas anything within our lowest values, you'll notice that you'll be trying to seek a pleasure and trying to avoid a pain, and this will activate the animal mind or the animal passion. We live in a world of support and challenge, pleasure and pain. And if you're only willing to see pleasure and you're trying to avoid pain, you're going to have the instinct of avoiding pain, because you perceive a lot of the things around you are like predators. And you're going to try and look for a pleasure, which is going to be an impulse for pleasure. But quite often what you end up finding, this can also be seen as a QF, or a quick fix. Whenever we're living a life where we don't feel fulfilled, and the purpose of life is fulfillment in all 7 areas: physical, financial, mental, spiritual, social, vocation, and family. If I told you you had absolute beauty, but mentally you had disease and disorder, and you had depression and anxiety, and they were stacking up, and every day you didn't feel like living, socially you didn't have a connected network, mentally you really didn't feel that you didn't know what was going on, career-wise you were working somewhere else, finances you were losing 100K a day and you were soon going to go bankrupt, you would feel, what's the purpose of owning that area of beauty? Because there's one area of fulfillment instead of the whole package. Whereas if I said to you that you mentally have a genius and you show it every single day, vocationally you have a career, and people can't wait to come to your business, especially your staff members, because they're inspired by their work and the whole thing feels inspired. Socially, you have hundreds and thousands of people around the world that connect with your mission, and they can't wait to help you as you help them. If I add more areas, you have greater areas of fulfillment. So in your highest area here, I've got fulfillment somewhere up here. You're more fulfilled. Here you go, fulfillment, which means you feel full. Anytime that we don't feel full in more areas of our life, we open up the doors for quick fixes, and that's when we're going to look for drugs or sex or connection with other people, but in a way where we need it and we exaggerate it and we feel that we can't live without it. Whenever we're doing quick fixes, we may feel fulfilled for short periods of time, but it's only temporary, and then we find that after that, we end up looking for a quick fix, and that's why some people are using quick fixes as a strategy to overcome an unfulfilled life, and you'll see they're addicted to certain substances or things because they're trying to bring balance to their life. So if you want to live an inspired life where you're inspired from within and share that on the outside, you awaken your genius. When you think of a genius, you're thinking of somebody that you can ask some questions in any field, and they're organized, disciplined, reliable, and focused, and that information pops out straight away. When you think of somebody that's unorganized in their field, or procrastinates, hesitates, or frustrates to get the information out, you'll see that here: procrastinate, hesitates, and frustrates because it's lower on their priorities. What you'll quite often notice is that person has challenges acquiring that information, and that's where the idiot is. And every human being on planet Earth has a genius and an idiot. When I was 0 to 10, my genius was in video games, socially connecting, and sports. I could play any sport, and I would be completely organized, disciplined. Even if it was a new sport, I'd figure it out. My body was programmed to be amazing at that. When I later on moved into studying now human physiology and things like that, I'm not as great at sports. That's because I've invested more time into that. Another way to look at this is to say, if we actually look at a 24 hours in a day and we look at what's highest in your values, because it's more valuable to you, you're going to invest more time, energy, and effort into that. And because if we look at the 24 hours, there is much more time, energy, effort, and money placed into that specific area for you, then you're going to have to sacrifice other areas of your life. So there may be other areas that you sacrifice, and in doing so, they become lower in your values, and those parts become harder for you to actually access. And you know that. Because if I ask you a question about things that are so high on your values, that you're so organized, so disciplined, you love researching, which means to search again within that field, then the minute I ask you about it, it's almost like before I even get to finish talking, you want to cut me off and answer questions straight away. You can access that information physiologically and psychologically immediately, and you lose space and time. Once again, you can talk about it for hours and it'll feel like minutes. Whereas anything in your lowest values, once again, you can procrastinate, hesitate, and I've even had headaches from trying to do things that I love and got an instant symptomology in order to let me know that I wasn't aligned with my highest and most inspired vision. In your highest values, you'll take, over here, you can take pleasure and pain equally. You won't look at pleasure as being over pain, but you'll see and perceive that there's more advantages than disadvantages. In this area, it's what's most important and meaningful. You'll awaken your leader because when you do what you love and love what you do, not only do you take support and challenge equally, but you move from different levels of evolution and growth and challenge. And as you do that, you awaken your potential to higher leaderships. To be a true authentic leader, you must lead others. In order to do that, you must have more information than what they have to be able to lead them in their questions, which is a quest for information in those areas. When you're doing something that you absolutely love, it's your mission and you can't wait to do it. And you have a higher level of resilience because you're taking positive and negative, not looking for one side over the other and trying to avoid a side. You will take both sides and you will embrace both sides of life. This inspires you, and this half, anybody living within this area has an inspiring life. Anybody that lives within their highest, most inspired in all 7 areas of life becomes most fulfilled. Anybody that's doing the complementary opposite opens themselves up to low energy, low vitality, disease and disorder within the body, looking for pain over pleasure, seeing more disadvantage than advantage, being a victim of your history in life. Now, all of those things are amazing, but you may be thinking, how do I communicate with others if every single human being is programmed in terms of their set of values, but every human being has a different set of values? And that's really what separates some of the greatest leaders in the world, and that's really what allows relationships to blossom. Because we all know that when people align with what's most valuable and meaningful to us, we pull them in. When people challenge what's most meaningful to us, we push them away. In fact, we can have friendships that in primary school we had the same values, and then for our time, when our values change, we think, I don't even know this person anymore. They've changed, or I've changed, and I no longer feel that way. And it's not good or bad, right or wrong. And in relationships, I've also seen that occur. I've seen people that had very similar values, and then throughout their lives, they've completely changed through different perceptions of what happens outside of them. By the way, if you're looking at where do your values come from, they're your voids. So if I look at my father growing up, he grew up in a family where there were 7 sisters, 2 brothers, there wasn't a lot of money. So the area that was most missing to him, one of them that I noticed was finances, and he wanted to make sure that he mastered finances for our family so he wouldn't have to go through that and we wouldn't again. So after years of feeling the pressure of that area, he built a huge value in that area. My mother, growing up without necessarily having a family because she was adopted by an alternative family, she felt that a blood connection family was one of the most valuable things. So as soon as she had us as children, that was what was most valuable. For myself, I felt in primary school I wasn't mentally strong enough and physically strong enough. And I had a lot of bullying and challenges, and I felt that I had to grow and evolve, otherwise I wouldn't be able to go through those challenges and I would just shrink and die. So I built a huge value for being physically strong, and that I'm doing bodybuilding and learning how to sculpture the body, mentally strong and socially connect with other people, because I felt they were the areas that were most void or most missing within my life. So know in your life, in terms of evolution, it's a perfect balance, because nature is trying to assist you by creating value in the areas where you have voids and empower you in your disempowered areas so you can grow stronger. Now let's have a look. Do I have any questions? No. But I've got you guys on here, so if you've got any questions, feel free to ask while we're going through this. So the next area, and I'm going to explain this in a few different examples so it's relevant, because I know that I've got different audiences watching this. You may look at this and think, how can I communicate more effectively with people outside of me? I work with clients that sometimes feel in certain areas of their life, whether it's work or friends or relationships, they're overly altruistic, not expressing their needs, minimizing their self-worth, and they like to grow and evolve and make sure that they have an equal communication because they're decreasing their self-worth. You may be a manager or a leader or aim to move into that role, and you want to make sure that you can maximize your communication with others, but not at the sacrifice of yourself. Or you may be under the delusion that you're here on planet Earth to be a nice person. And I'll break that now. You're not here to be a nice or a good person, because the word nice or good is usually when people perceive that you align with their values. And because every human being on planet Earth has a unique and different set of values, you will never be able to acquire and make sure that you have everyone's values fulfilled. Because the minute that you're accepting and showing somebody that you appreciate their values and doing the actions necessary to do that, you're frustrating somebody else. And I know that I have certain friends with belief, I've got some friends that are very Muslim in their beliefs, and they believe that women should be covered up. That's part of their culture. And I've got other friends that are very, I believe the word's liberal and relaxed in their beliefs, and they feel they should be able to do whatever they want. So to satisfy these two friends, if I satisfy one friend in saying I believe their beliefs, I'm already starting to annoy and frustrate another. It's not me, it's my beliefs. I could alter those beliefs, and then those people would alter their perceptions about me. So the idea that we're going to fulfill everyone else's values in this world and be seen as a perfectly nice person, it's not going to happen. We're going to fulfill and have some people that accept us and other people that reject us. And it's about learning how to love that, appreciate that, and try and communicate in a way where we give other people what they want, but also maximize and keep our power in the areas that we want. If you do that as a leader, you'll be able to get as many people following you as possible because they'll feel you care about them while also getting what you want. If you do that in a relationship, you won't minimize yourself, exaggerate a partner, infatuate over them, only later on to realize when the relationship ends or the whole time you had resentment building up because you didn't feel that it was an equal relationship. So whatever context, this will be valuable to you. So we have a higher set of values and we have a lower set of values. So I'll place that in green down here. LV, LV. So if you'll see in these three charts, the center is going to be when you're perfectly balanced and equilibrated. This is when you're balanced, you're seeing positive and negative equally in yourself and in others. You see support and challenges equal. It's your authentic self. It's your balanced exchange. And you see a balance of benefits and drawbacks, positive and negatives, grateful, and you're appreciative. When you communicate to other people in a way where they get what they want and you get what you want, and there is no sacrifice whatsoever, and you're completely balanced in that exchange, there's no way that later on you can, if they don't do something that you value, you'll pop up with, well, I did this for you, and I did all of these things, and all the unequal exchanges will pop up. That won't be the case. But sometimes, and I'll use this in a relationship context, but it can also be used in others. There are times in my life, and I know the clients that I've worked with, where we've exaggerated somebody else in our mind, put them on a pedestal, put ourselves in a pit. You can never look up to somebody without putting yourself down. Know that it's a balanced game. So every single time that you place somebody on a pedestal for areas that you think they have more than you, you're doing it at the exchange of minimizing yourself. Anytime that you look down at somebody and you think you have more, you're exaggerating yourself. You can never have a balance by putting someone above or below. And there are physiological impacts of that, and there are psychological impacts. So if you exaggerate somebody, and you can see here a positive, if you exaggerate the positive in somebody, then you'll be doing that at the sacrifice of minimizing yourself. And the chances are that they become the predator because you look at them and you go, wow, you become the predator, pardon me, and they become the prey, and you actually want to consume what you see in them. So if you see a partner that you think has extreme beauty, extreme finances, and you don't see that in yourself, you'll minimize yourself, do whatever it takes in order to acquire that person. But for every second that you're minimizing yourself and minimizing your needs, you feel unauthentic and unappreciated because you're not being you. You're perceiving there are more benefits and drawbacks and support and challenge in that person. I've worked with clients that have minimized themselves in relationships, exaggerated the worth in others, only to find that later on, a year, days, weeks, months, or years past, sacrificed their friendships, sacrificed who they were, didn't express their voice, let that person walk all over them. And in doing that, they felt that they weren't authentic or themselves. So yes, they had the person they infatuated with in their life, but they really didn't have them because they were never really being themselves. And by the time they woke up out of it, they realized that they basically felt that they'd been abused and used, but really it was because they weren't claiming their power and learning how to equally communicate. When we exaggerate the worth of somebody and we become a puppy dog, that it is guaranteed that they'll walk all over us. When we minimize ourselves, it's guaranteed that they'll do that. If we minimize somebody and walk all over them, they're going to build up resentment towards us because they feel that we're just exaggerating ourselves. We're very highly narcissistic and minimizing their worth. When we exaggerate the positive in others, it only ever comes at the minimization of ourselves, and we're looking to let them in, and this activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So in this aspect, it's more pleasure than pain. Most people in this world are looking for more pleasure than pain. There's only one problem. In any circumstance or situation where you exaggerate the positive and you completely let go of the negative and you become a so-called positive thinker, there's a certain point in which positive thinking works. I like to see it as the perfect balance point. If you're at a point where you're feeling extremely negative and then you look for the positive and it gets to a point that's perfectly balanced, this centered point right here, you maximize your power and potential because you see both sides and you know how to use the perceived negatives and see the positives in it, and you know see the perceived positives and the negative in that, so you won't sacrifice your power. But if you go from extreme negative beyond the balance point and exaggerate the positive, you now go to delusional thinking. Imagine that I met my partner Renee and I said to you guys, it's all good, never bad, all right, never wrong, only caring, never not caring. She only ever shows that she's thinking about other people. Well, then I'd be able to probably go through her life and find people, like ex-partners that thought she didn't do this, she was negative, or if I go against her values, she's going to challenge me and put me down, and if I challenge and attack her, she's also going to do that. So she owns both sides. If I put her on a pedestal, I just screwed her and me over, because she can't live up to the imaginary figure that I've created in my head and the fantasy, which is more positive than negative, and I'm going to experience disease and disorder in my body in order to try and bring down that unrealistic expectation, which you'll see just here. I'll get to that in 2 seconds. It's just following down here. The parasympathetic activates the rest and relaxation, and we know when we exaggerate somebody and their worth, we let them in fact, a job or a situation, we relax and we exaggerate the positive, we increase the probability of them becoming the predator and attacking us. This is usually where we release dopamine and also our endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin. These are our addictive bonding chemicals. These will make you completely blind to the downsides. That's why if you've ever felt that you've extremely infatuated over somebody and you've been highly into them or a situation and a job, and later on you discovered another side and you thought, how did I not see that? These chemicals are released through the body as a feedback to try and break the addiction to positive thinking and bring you back into a state of equilibrium, balance, and authenticity and seeing things as they are. So, from releasing our addictive bonding chemicals, which makes us blind to the downside, we create unrealistic fantasy. A fantasy is when we exaggerate the positive and minimize the negatives. That's also known as the infatuation stage during a relationship. I wrote an article that said, the real relationship begins when the infatuation ends. And that was talking about seeing the balance and loving and appreciating someone for who they are. And when you do that, that's truly when the relationship becomes authentic. This also influences the cellular state and the cellular level of your body. I won't go into that, but I'll keep this nice and simple for this presentation. If anyone's looking for more complex theory and the application of this theory, I'll be able to discuss that at the end, but I'll also tell you to go to my website, www.emmanuelanthony.com.au. If you're interested in the research behind this theory, go to www.drdmartini.com, and you can also have a look at the Values Factor book by Dr. John Demartini, which takes a lot of these insights into much further depth, which is it's a beautiful thing. So, that part of you that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, that's your builder, and it's anabolic, it's disequilibrated, and it will give you a feedback to let you know, and you've got symptomology that you're exaggerating, and that's your infatuation. Because it's letting you know that you're exaggerating, you're about to build yourself up, only to let yourself down. And this is where you reject the perceptions of yourself. You will never put somebody on a pedestal unless you see something in them that you don't see in yourself. But if you study Aristotle, and where he took his students out to look at the environment and told them it's all a reflection and the universe is a mirror, what you see in others, you see in yourself. Or if you study Carl Jung, that wrote about the shadow, and he was discussing the fact that every single human being has parts that we openly see in ourselves and other parts that we suppress and reject that become like shadows. But whatever we suppress and reject, we place onto other people, and unwisely so, until we learn how to acquire and balance that in ourselves. So this is when our ratio of perceptions is off. For any of you that have seen any of my talks before, you'll notice I talk about a ratio of perceptions. Your ratio of perceptions is the ratio in which you see and perceive the world. It's your ratio of positive to negative. When you put somebody on a pedestal, you exaggerate the positive. When you put them in a pit, you exaggerate the negative, but neither of these are seeing the person as balanced. Both of these will occupy time and space in your mind and your body. So let's say I give you a sheet of paper on your right hand and one on your left, and I bring one of the most beautiful males or females that you've ever seen, and you're highly infatuated with them. And I say, can you write all the positives of being with them on the right or the negatives on the left? If I end up with a 7-to-1 ratio of positives, I know that that ratio breaks a 1-to-1 balance. So because you're not balanced, you're going to be irrational. The word irrational means to not be at a ratio of 1-to-1, the word rational. So when your ratio is off, you're going to do irrational things, and that's going to activate the parasympathetic and your exaggerated side, only for you to learn the other side later. If it's an exaggerated negative, your ratio of perception will be off as well. This completely throws your autonomic nervous system off, which is what regulates your chemicals and hormones. Therefore, your body is bringing it into your mind and keeping the emotions as a feedback to try and get you back into a state of balance, because you're not here to exaggerate things. So if you imagine anxiety, for example, which is an emotional feedback, you're exaggerating the amount of chemicals and hormones, specifically that are running through to the heart, like adrenaline, which means that you're aging that part. Like any other machine or any other thing on planet Earth, the more that you use it, the more that it ages, and the more that it increases the level of disease. That's what happens to our internal organs as well. So if you're not here to put people on pedestals, you're not here to put people in pits, then you're here to put them in your hearts. And by the way, when you put them in pits, they occupy time and space in your mind as well. How many of you know that you've had people that you've been extremely friggin' frustrated at and extremely pissed off at, and had irrational thoughts? Your ratio of positive to negative was way off, and you thought, I'm going to friggin' hurt or kill this person. But the reality is, even if you did that, you'd be sitting in jail going, years later, it was completely irrational, completely unnecessary. I shouldn't have done that. I wasted 30 years of my life. So whenever you do this, you become the predator, and these people become the predator, and you feel like the prey, and they're attacking you. It's a rejected part of you as well, because if you love a part in yourself, you bring people closer. If you reject it, you project it onto them and push them further away. You see more challenge and support, draw back the benefits, pain than pleasure. You exaggerate the negative, and you create unrealistic expectations of them. You see, the problem with being angry and frustrated at other people and putting them in a pit that I found, it's like swallowing poison and hoping that they die. Because I can't get them out of my friggin' head, and the frustration consumes me. And even if I don't ever see them again, I waste my life in the process. So one of the greatest things I've learned in terms of communicating is to make sure that I have a balanced exchange, and I'm learning how to communicate my values in others. Not being narcissistic and projecting them onto other people, because even if I look at a business, if I'm narcissistic and I don't care about my staff and I exaggerate my worth and I minimize theirs, that means that my staff members are eventually going to look for other jobs because they feel that I don't understand them, because I identify with their highest values and I'm going against it and just projecting mine. So I don't understand them and their identity. I don't understand what's most valuable to them. I don't understand what's most meaningful, and they feel that I only care about myself, so they'll go and look for something else. For those of you working in business, by the way, people do not go to work for the business or the company. They go to work because it fulfills or allows them to fulfill what they value. So a true leader is right in the center and balanced, where they find out what's most valuable and meaningful to their staff, but in a way where they're able to get what's most valuable and meaningful to them and bring those two together in a pair of opposites and allow them to maximize their potential and growth and grow together. In a relationship, when you communicate to your partner in a way where they get what they value and you get what you value, you decrease the probability of storing up emotional baggage and unequal exchanges, only to have someone later on go, but I did all of this for you and I did these things for you, etc. So if you learn how to communicate effectively, you'll completely bring the relationship back into balance. It won't occupy time and space in your mind, it'll be in your heart, and you'll increase the authenticity in yourself and the appreciation and self-confidence. Now, this activates your sympathetic, which is your fight or flight, substance P, cortisone, which ages you, and it also creates repelling chemicals, unrealistic nightmares, also influences your cells, destroys you anabolically as well. So catabolically, pardon me, as well. This will create symptoms in terms of anger, sadness, hurt, fear, etc. All negative emotions which are trying to get you back into a state of balance and let you know that you're not being authentic. So the reality is, you're not here to be overly narcissistic and project your values onto others. You're not here to be overly altruistic and exaggerate the worth of others, because then you feel like you're sacrificing your life and not doing things that are valuable to you. You're here to communicate and learn how to grow and evolve. You're here to figure out how to actually communicate and present things to others in a way where they get what they want and you get what you want, and they love exchanging with you. It's like a business. When you have equal exchange, the business wants to continue to do business. It's the same with those around us. It's the same in a relationship as well. So I'm going to end off on an example for you. My top 3 values are human evolution, development, and growth. My second highest values is physical mastery, and my third is family. Sometimes my second and my third adjust. Renee, my partner, usually her highest values are business, her second are family, and her third's physical, and her second and third can also adjust. So you can see our second and third highest values to both of us are very similar, but our first are very different, and they're actually quite powerful. So imagine Renee's been having a troubling week with her staff members. She works in the fashion industry in the back end and traveling overseas and looking after factories and all of that, but she's inspired by the vision and the growth of sustainable fashion around the world. So imagine that she comes home and she's been dealing with a lot of challenges with her staff members instead of dealing with the growth area. As you saw in the previous chart, whenever you do what's most valuable and meaningful to you, you have energy and vitality, and 5 hours can feel like 5 minutes. So if she's doing things that are lower in her values, she's going to be procrastinating, hesitating, frustrating, feeling like she's not doing what's authentic to her and not appreciating life. So imagine that's been going on for a week, and she walks in and I judge her and I'm like, you're friggin' pissing me off, you're all over the shop, and just start attacking her and telling her, you need to do this work, I need to balance you out and get you back to where you need to be because you're friggin' annoying me. If I attack her like that, the only way she'll put up with it is if she's extremely weak. Now I know Renee and she's way too strong to put up with that. My partner would tell me straight away and she'd say, excuse me, and she'd pull me back in line. So in order to bring that into balance, in order to make sure, and by the way, if anyone's asking questions, I can't see them on here, but I'll answer them after this. So if I did that, it would completely minimize our growth. It would completely minimize the relationship with her, and she'd be building up resentment. Even if she didn't say anything, she'd be building up resentment and she wouldn't have a respect for me. She would be going, if he continues this, I'm out of here. So that doesn't work. If I'm overly narcissistic and projecting my values onto her, that doesn't work. If she walks in, I'm like a puppy dog and I'm overly altruistic, please, 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 let me help you, etc. She's going to say, it's a puppy dog, I could walk all over him. And if we have an argument, she's going to be thinking, I don't have to take him seriously because I'm not demanding respect, but in a balanced format. Now, both of those forms of communication, whether you look at staff members, whether you look at friends, family, partners, doesn't matter who it's with. If you exaggerate either way, you're going to attract the other side. But if I have a balanced exchange where I actually communicate with her and I say, she walks in and I've got organic food that ticks off the health component, and I am wanting to spend time with her because family also includes myself as a partner. And then I communicate with her and say, I know that you love the sustainable fashion and moving that industry and you're inspired by the growth of it. But at the moment you're having challenges with staff members and you'd like to overcome that so you can get back to what inspires you, and you don't know how long that's going to take. But what if instead of charging you like I charge companies, high premium to actually be able to work through that, we went through this in half an hour and brought that area into balance, and you could sit down and enjoy some calming food and relaxation, and I'd be there to guide you through the process. And in half an hour, I would guarantee that Monday next week when you get back into work, you're back into the area that you love, and then after that we can go and exercise and spend some time together. Now she's much more likely to say yes to that because I communicated all of the things that are valuable to her. So what did she hear? She heard her top 3 values being fulfilled. What did I hear? I heard all of my values being fulfilled as well. So there's no sacrifice. So later on, there won't be well, I did all of these things for you, etc. If I find that I'm investing a lot of time into her, but she's not investing into me, and there's an imbalance. We actually feel like we're helping each other grow and evolve. When we do that, and we love the person for who they are and who they authentically are, communicating their values, when we love people for who they are, they become who we love. When we compare people to a fantasy in our head, an imaginary figure is more positive than negative, good than bad, right than wrong, only in our heads, and we make them align with our values instead of loving them for theirs, they build up enough resentment where eventually they'll pop and say, stop trying to change me, treat me for who I am. So if you want to be an amazing communicator, it doesn't matter what area of life, physical, financial, social, vocational, family, if you want to be an amazing communicator, if you want to increase your self-worth, if you want to increase the worth of others, and you want to truly appreciate having an amazing and inspiring life, I invite you to get in contact with me, and there are multiple different ways in which we can work together to have a look at your life, have a look at the areas where you can improve your communication, and not just teach you how to communicate, but show you how to take on challenges, show you how to be able to take on support and challenge in all areas of life, see both sides of life, and increase your appreciation for being an amazing and effective communicator in your highest values and what truly inspires you, and giving yourself permission to share that with the world. And I believe that's what we're all here for. Because if we wouldn't experience so much disease and disorder in the body when we don't truly communicate in a balanced way and effectively with others. So that's Emmanuel. I hope you enjoyed this. It was a very comprehensive talk. I'm going to be getting a lot more comprehensive with some of my talks, but it just means that you guys get a hell of a lot more value. So thank you and stay inspired.